Hi, Viviana. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. I'm in the Netherlands, and there's a lot of snow outside, and we love that.
Can you get me some? It's really hot here. I could really use some snow.
I can send you some.
Okay, I'm so ready. It's so hot. Anyways, welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have this wonderful human who will talk to us all about the trends in HR, which we would like to know so we know what we are doing and we do it the best that we can. So to introduce you to our people, Tom is a director of the HR Trend Institute, which you founded in 2014. You have vast experience in HR management in multinational companies, which we will feed off of if you allow us. You are very into innovation in HR and always moving. That's what I understood. Never a dull moment with Tom. Since 2015, correct me if I'm wrong, the HR Trend Institute has been releasing a yearly list of HR trends to look out and so keep in mind as we move ahead. So today we will talk about the 11 trends that you have stated for 2021. So anyways, thank you for joining us today, and to everyone that's watching. We appreciate your time and all the insight that you will share with us so we can be better at what we do. Should we go right ahead with the questions?
Absolutely, go ahead. I'm happy to be here. My Spanish is not good enough to speak in Spanish yet. I'm trying to learn with the help of Duolingo, but I prefer for the moment to speak in English. I've never been in Peru, which is also on my list. So I hope to be there this year or maybe next year if it's possible to travel again. And
hopefully
then I hope to.
Be.
Yeah, I think
Make your way down to Uruguay. You may know a person or two.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm looking forward. Yeah, go ahead. And if people have questions, put them in the chat box and we will try to address them as well.
We will pick Tom's brain until he says no more. That is the promise that we make. I want to start with the tough one because you said goodbye HR business partners. That must be hard for some people to hear. Also,
I don't know.
I was looking at job postings today and I found a new one for a lead HR business partner. And I said, well, I need to talk to Tom about this. How do you see this happening? How do you see, because I keep seeing HR business partners.
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about that. And I don't want to, let's say, insult anybody. So it's not, I have nothing against HR business partners. But so what I see over time is that HR is going to be kind of split in 3 parts. And probably part number 1, and I would still say the most important part, is HR operations. That's running the HR machine, running the HR operations, being very client-focused, internal clients, but also being very good in automation, process optimization, etc. HR operations. Most people in HR work in HR operations. The second part, I picture it here, is more about HR strategy, HR advice, HR architects. Those are the people probably which we would call today HR business partners. People who work close to the business and help design the HR architecture. What are we going to do to attract people, to be a workplace where people want to go and to realize our objectives? HR strategy. You don't need many people there. I will come back to that. The third part, I have to picture it here, is more, these days I call it people success or employee success. That's the people who help employees and other people, in a sense, to become better. Yes. So that's more focused on employees, people, more than the organization. And what you have seen in the last years, but I don't know about South America or Ecuador, Peru. So I can't speak for every country. But what you've seen over years, that many people aspire to be in that strategy box. They say, we are important and we want to be in the strategy box, and let's call ourselves business partners. So many people are aspiring to be a business partner. And in that process, we sometimes neglected operations because people say, oh, I don't want to be in the administration. I want to be a strategist. I want to be a change agent. So we neglected operations, and we neglected, to a certain extent, the people. Because the people said, oh, yeah, HR, they are part of management. Yes, HR is with the bosses. HR is not there for us. Mm-hmm. HR is primarily there for the organization. Now, if you look at the activities of people who call themselves or who are business partners, and you look at their activities, many of their activities belong in operations. Sometimes, if you look at it, a big proportion, 70-80% of the work they do is more operational than strategic. That belongs in the operations. So you need, I said goodbye business partner, but it's not a total goodbye. You need less people of high quality, yes? And we need to say operations is important, and we need to have people who can really work well with the people and are focused on the people, more on the people than the organization.
It actually makes a lot of sense, so that your good people don't get caught up in just being operational and maybe not hone their skill of strategy, or so it makes sense. Seems
and it's not a status element, because working in HR operations, that's super important, and it's not low status, not at all. So we should get rid of the status element.
It feels like in the past few years it has become that if you're not a business partner, if you're not strategy, then you're lower level, lower quality, and it's not. It's if you weren't there, other things wouldn't happen.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about employee experience these days, but if you look at the term, what is important for the employee experience, many of those things are in operations. People say, I want a smooth onboarding. If I have a question, I want a quick answer. If I have issues, I want those issues to be dealt with. So many of the employee experience is determined by HR operations and by people success as well.
Every question I can think of that would make employees' lives better just run through operations, or this third leg that you talked about, just improving.
Yeah, but that's the
engagement.
third leg is important because there often is a kind of conflict. The conflict between, are you helping the organization or are you helping the employees? And then people say, yeah, but if we help the employees, we help the organization. But that's not always the same. Because if I am the HR person of an organization and I talk to you and say, Viviana, I'm here to help you. How can I? Then you think, well, yeah, but what is Tom's? Where are Tom's interests? Is that with the organization, or is he really there to help me? And that's, we should take that into account, because you might be in an organization where you say, well, my plan is to work here 1 or 2 years, then I want to move on. But I'm not going to say that to Tom, because if I say to Tom I'm going to leave in 2 years, he wouldn't like it. But if I have your interests in mind, that might be very good for you to work a couple of years and you're in the cruise industry. Well, maybe you don't want to be in that industry your whole life, but it's a good experience to have. And then you can move on to other hospitality areas or whatever. Yeah.
Completely. Yes. Looking forward to see how that shift takes place, to see how we can best use people's skills, which you talk about later on. The next question I have is nudging versus policing, which I found really interesting as a mix of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, most people are working from home if they're able, if the company has done that. In Uruguay, that's kind of what we're doing, at least most private companies and a lot of the public sector. So how can we mix this when there's no, because you talked about office layout and office layout,
but that's an example. So let me talk, there's two different subjects here.
Mm-hmm.
One subject is nudging as a concept, which is an interesting concept, because nudging is basically meaning, how can you invite people to show certain behavior without, you could say, policing it, or without putting it in their face. Examples, I have, my favorite example is, what you want, the behavior you want, is that people eat less. In many countries, that's the case. We want people to eat less. Now you can say, well, okay, we put posters everywhere, eat less. Yes? Or we say, you get a fine if you eat too much sugar. Well, we know that that's not very effective. And we can put posters everywhere and then still people eat too much. The alternative, and that's tried out quite some time ago, for example, by Google, they said, let's, in our restaurants, at the time they still went to the office, in their office restaurants, half of the restaurants, they kept the original plates, but in the other half, they made the plates, platos, the plates smaller. Yeah? And then they measured what people ate. Yeah? And surprise, surprise, in the restaurants with the smaller plates, people ate less. Well, that's nudging. Your intervention is simple. You don't put posters, eat less, but you give people a smaller plate, and there they go. They eat less. Now, for example, in these days, there is type of behavior you want people to show. For example, if people work a lot from home, they don't move enough. So because they sit behind their desk and they do the Skypes all day, and you want them to move. Then the question is, okay, you can say, put posters again, say, now time to move, everybody move. Or you can try to design a cleverer way to nudge people to move. I'm just thinking aloud, but for example, you could say, well, maybe we should not schedule any meetings before 10 o'clock in the morning to allow people. And then we gently invite people. For example, we say at 9 o'clock, we send the message, hey, good morning. Maybe it's a good day for a morning walk. See you later. That's a kind of nudge. Or you, if you provide people office material for their home, maybe you should provide them a standing desk. I have one here. I won't raise it, but I have a standing desk. Maybe that's not nudging, but in a way, it invites me to make standing easier.
It gives you an option.
It gives me an option, and I can even program my desk in such a way that every hour desk goes up. Is that nudging? I don't know, but so finding ways instead. What is the type of behavior you want, and how can we invite people to show that behavior? That's a very interesting element. For example, and the last example is you want people to give compliments. Yeah. Because in most organizations, people don't give enough compliments. Saying, hey, Viviana, you did a very good job today, or I like the way you presented the podcast. People don't tend to give compliments, but if something goes wrong, they immediately, there you go. So now you can, okay, how can we invite people to give more compliments? Well, maybe a little pop-up on the computer saying, hey, Tom, have you given your daily compliment? Or so it doesn't need to be complicated, but it can be more friendly than just prescribing and policing is worse, punishing. Yeah. Do I make myself clear?
Yes. I hope for people on the other side as well, because it sounds like something that would create a better surrounding of feeling invited to do things rather than just being told, I'm not a child, don't treat me like a child, and then feeling like you get, so it feels.
But you see that also governments, for example, have difficulty with that in the current situation. We want people to show certain behavior, washing their hands, keep a distance, don't go out. Well, there's a long list of things we want people to do. It's not so easy just to tell people this is what you should do, because I don't know how it is in your country, but in the Netherlands, people are not so obedient. They say, well, let's see.
No, and you don't want to be told.
No.
It's as soon as you tell me, I'm like, no, just because you're telling me not.
So now the question is, okay, maybe what can we do in another way? So it's a mixture always of good communication, but also, redesigning, for example, also streets in a way that you maybe naturally people keep distance. Redesigning airports, redesigning shopping areas in such a way that people more naturally show the behavior. But you see also that governments are struggling because they are not so much used in involving psychologists and those type of people in the measures they take. And today they talk a lot to doctors, and that's the main. So many doctors kind of determine what needs to happen, but they are not behavioral specialists. And we need to involve, my view, but I'm preaching for my own. How do you call it? My own profession, because I'm a psychologist. But I think we should benefit in society, but also in organizations. We can benefit a lot more from the insights of the social sciences.
It makes a lot of sense, especially like you said, seeing how the government is trying to get everybody to do something and not necessarily finding the best way to get what they need. And I mean, to keep us safe.
Yeah. If people have questions, put them in the box. I don't see many people, but don't hesitate. Ask any questions, and we will find time to answer them.
Yes. After you talked about the risk of detachment from working from home and just not being in your everyday surrounding at work, and that having an impact on engagement. But you also talked about digital tracking, and Controlio was the name of one.
That
was a great
Staff cop.
That's a great name to get your point across.
There were some others. I have them here. I like the names. Here you have, for example, what was it? Interguard, Staff cop. Work examiner, yes. Controlio. Those are the...
Just great names people come up with. I mean, it makes your job of selling your product very easy. It's in the name. And I was wondering, when HR tries to work, especially now, with keeping people engaged when you're not part of the surrounding of work, but you do have management that wants to control or digital track, how can we as HR professionals try to mix the two so that you don't feel detached and also like Big Brother is watching you, and try to come with ideas that would be engaging for you, even if we do need to implement digital tracking just to make sure things get done? Or
couple of things here. One, I think, yes, keeping engagement and connection of people to the organization high is an issue, not only for the people who work from home. And we should continue to realize that most people who work cannot work from home. If you look at the professions that employ most people, generally those are professions where people cannot work at home. And many people work in retail. In retail, you cannot work from home. Many people work in, even these days, in warehouses, distributing and packaging all the goods we order online. So retail, warehousing, truck drivers, people in hospitals. So there are many people who cannot work from home, but also many of those people have engagement issues. For example, we see that in hospitals, the pressure of staff in hospitals is big. We continuously, they have to work longer. They work in adverse conditions. And everybody is looking at them. So also there the pressure is building, and detachment, the risk of detachment is increasing. So it has not, in a sense, it's for everybody, not only for the people who work at home. So that's one thing. And the second remark here is, yes, we should not be naive. Naive in the sense of, but all employers are fantastic and good and they empower the people. Well, that's not true. There's a variety of employers. Some of them are excellent. Most of them are good. But there are also employers that are not so good and that are in the past and today. They say, we don't trust the people. We have to check them. We have to control them. So it's not so easy to change those type of companies. But there you see if you hire a software that is called Controlio or a spy on your people, well, then you are in a bad corner, I must say. Yes. I think it's in the use of technology, it's very important that we are very transparent and clear. Why are we using the technology? And how can the technology help you, employee? There we should be very transparent. And I advocate that we more take the perspective of the employee. How can we help employees with technology to do their work better than the perspective of the organization, where we say we want to check and control every employee? It's not so easy. But if we are not transparent, it becomes a lot more difficult. So we have to be transparent, and let's talk to people and let's ask people, how can we help you in the best possible way? What is the technology you are using? What kind of technology you could use more? Well, then maybe it's not spying on me, saying, is Tom awake or is he asleep? But it's, hey, Tom, how can we help you with learning and development modules, for example, to do your job better? How can we help you? So, be transparent and focus more on the employee than just on controlling the employees. The last element here is, and we might discuss it later, is also around what is called often continuous listening. That's not so much controlling, but that's really continuously listening to what's going on in the organization. What is the opinion of the people? Do we know how they feel? Do we know how we can? And I think that's super, super important. And that's, you can also do very transparent. Say, hey, what are your listening devices? That could be questionnaires, that could be other ways as well. And then you should be able to take action as well. But I often mention the example of an organization which I like, that do super simple thing. They send a small questionnaire to their employees, I think every 2 weeks, and it's only 2 questions, and they build it themselves in SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. The question number 1 is, how do you rate our company on a 10-point scale? That's a net promoter score. Would you recommend our company as an employer to your friends and family? Question 1. Question 2 is an open question. And then the question is, what can we do to make your life in our organization better? What can we do? And then people fill it in, and then you take action. Super simple, but people like it.
And they do this, you said, every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks, I think, yeah. But you can do it every month, every week, but it's super simple. You can build it yourself, but then you should take action. But the demands of people are sometimes not super. They don't say, buy me a bigger home. They say, well, my webcam is not working very well, or can we please not schedule meetings between 12 and 1 because I have to collect my children from the school. It's those type of things that people are asking.
It sounds fairly simple, and is a great way to keep connecting with people.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, sometimes
you talked about detachment, but as you could say, as detachment prevention, contact is super important. Frequent contact is super important. It's super simple, but it's often neglected and forgotten.
I have seen it, like you said, just neglected is not as important as it actually is when you take the time to listen, and people are just grateful because you were listening. And
it's not, again, it doesn't require a lot of time, but if you were in my team, I say, let's connect on Friday at 5 o'clock or whatever. Hey, Viviana, how was your week? Can I help you in any way? Good weekend, goodbye. Not, hey, Viviana, here's your list of tasks for next week. Not too task oriented, but just asking you the question, hey, how was your week? Anything I can help you with?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's not doing it such a big deal so that people can feel comfortable and free as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not, fantastic. It's really good to know, because there's a heightened sense of detachment, and HR is always trying to do things to keep people engaged, and this sense of belonging and to reel you in while you're feeling like you're just keep pulling away. So how to do that in an age that's so
and that's not one size fits all. It's different for different people. So I think it's also not about general measures, but it's about, okay, how can I help you? How can I help you? What can we do? It's not the one measure. And that's also related to homeworking. People are in different circumstances. They have different type of work. They have a different home situation. So the request and the wishes of people might differ a lot.
Well, it's great. Hopefully people can take a few suggestions from here to try to apply or think back at what it is that's happening in their workplace and how they can do it better, considering these trends that we see moving forward. My last question to you, and please, if you feel like you have a question, please feel free to put it in the comments. We'll read it out. The idea is to squeeze Tom as much as possible for his knowledge and all the future insight he has with his experience. So you said not all leaders are coaches, and to highlight somehow the people that do have that particular skill, and put them in coaching activities. my question to you is, do you see any possible setbacks on perceived trustworthiness of those leaders that don't have this coaching skill? Or how can it affect, how do you think it can affect them? How can we help them, highlight in other areas? Or
I understand. I understand the question around do we expect and do we want all our leaders to be good coaches? And if we do it differently, does it backfire? I think we ask too much of our leaders in a way. If you go to my website, it's hrtrendinstitute.com, hrtrendinstitute.com. You can find, for example, a collection of leadership models. I think in the meantime, 120, 130 leadership models. All those models, they reflect something. The leader should have a vision. The leader should be task-oriented, result-oriented. The leader should have a people focus. The leader should combine long-term and short-term. So there's a whole lot of things all the leaders should do. Yes? Sustainable, whatever. And we know that that's an unrealistic picture. Yes? To look for leaders that have all of those elements. And it even might be detrimental. It might be detrimental because some people might be good in one or two areas, and we better use that. Yes. And so, one, we should not expect too much. Secondly, we better, I think, use the strengths of people instead of asking all the people to do the same behavior. Coaching is a good example. In many organizations, I see that they say, all our leaders and managers should be good coaches. HR, make that happen. And then what HR does, for example, is organize a training, coaching training, and they organize a process, yes? And the process is, Tom, you are a manager leader. You have to do this and this and this with your people at these and these moments. And then HR puts that program, that process in the computer, and it forces people to show certain behavior. That generally does not work well. And we know, but I don't know what your experience is, that, some people are excellent people managers and coaches, and some are not. And we can improve them maybe a little bit. But if we say, well, no, Tom is very good in getting in new clients for the organization. He's client-focused. Maybe he's not a super good people manager. But, we need new clients. Let Tom bring in the new clients and lead the client acquisition effort. Where Viviana, she's excellent in coaching and helping people. And she's going to do that. So build on the strengths of people. Then they feel more comfortable as well. Because if you force me to do all those coaching and review meetings, I don't like it. I rather be out there to get in new clients. While you like to help people to become better. And that's your strengths. So let's build on those strengths. So I don't think it backfires. I think the result will be better. The results will be better because we use the capabilities of people better, and we don't force people in behavior they don't naturally like to show.
That makes a lot of sense. I see here many leaders I know should listen to this. Yes, me too. Because we expect a lot, and in part, is it necessarily their fault that they're not skilled at whatever, like everything we need them to? No, you're human. I have my skill set, which is better at certain things than others, and then Tom, you have yours. And why should we feel less than just because we don't have these other sets of skills that someone else has and can bring to the table? And then just all be super.
So I see some names coming across here: Michael, Diana, Anna Maria, Angie, Gonzalo, Piero, Cynthia, Talia, Vanessa, Victor, many others. Nice you are here. At least nice you are able. We know your names a little bit. If you have questions, we are stopping in not too long from now. So if you have any questions, this is your chance, and we will be able to discuss that. Anything more from your side, Viviana?
I do, because I would like to bring up this personal guide, user guide, that was mentioned in the article. We will share the article on social so they can go to it and they can access the personal user guide through there. I found it fascinating. I personally found mine hard to read, because if I have to give this to people, I'm not the easiest person.
Okay.
How do you see this personal user guide coming into play in the way that we manage our relationships, in the way that we see people? How do you?
Yeah, and it's the personal user guide is you could say not a big thing, but it's a simple tool that can help us. A friend of mine designed it, and it was all around the question: hey, if we buy a television or a car, generally you get a user guide how to use it. But in dealing with people, why don't people have a personal user guide? And if you did your test, I've not seen yours, but if you share it with me, then that guide tells you, hey, Viviana, in working with Tom, maybe you should take this into account. Tom, when working with Viviana, these are some of the elements that are important for her. Can you take that into account? So I think it's a simple instrument. It's free, and you can use it in all kinds of phases. For example, onboarding is an interesting phase to do it. New people in the organization. Hey, Tom, you're new. What's the user guide for you? So I think it's a nice example of the bigger, you could say, the bigger trend, one of the bigger trends behind it. I've talked about it many times, is personalization. And let's not assume everybody is the same or that groups of people are very much the same, but let's try to find out what the individual wishes, needs, and capabilities of people are, and let's try to take that into account. And that's not done enough yet. We have seen that, for example, I don't know how you experience that, but many people still say, oh, you are a millennial. So I know when you are born, now I can predict your behavior, which is absolutely not true. There's no evidence that if you know someone's date of birth, that you can. I see a question passing here. Shall we deal with that? Because before it goes away. Hey, Tom, what is the most important thing that Latin American organizations can learn from European organizations in HR? Thank you. And well, that's a big question. I would not say that necessarily Europe is far ahead of South America. So that's one. So secondly, I'm not a great advocate of benchmarking and best practices. Because what you often see that people say, okay, what are you doing well? And then they try to copy it. But you have to look at your local circumstances, and you have to look at the issues that are important there where you are. So that's the first remark here. Don't compare yourself too much, but also don't underestimate yourself so much. South America, Latin America is, again, super big. There's many countries I've not been in. If I travel in South America, generally I go to Brazil, I go to Chile. Those are the two countries I know best. Well, even between those two countries, the differences are huge. Chile and Brazil. Well, probably. Well, you would say that what do they have in common apart from being part of Latin America? But I experience all the time when I'm there that the level of HR already is quite big. So I think that's important. And what if I just have to take one lesson, and maybe not from Europe to Latin America, but more in general, then I think one of the most important lessons is stay close to your organizational business issues and also look at the end clients of the organization. Don't isolate yourself too much in HR. And that's what I see in Europe, but probably sometimes also in Latin America, that HR is too much focused on HR and not enough focused on the important stakeholders of the organization, the clients, the employees, but also society, for example. So look outside. I think that's probably one of the most important lessons. And the second one, is don't do too much. If I look at the agendas and the plans of HR teams, generally they want to do too much. Their agenda is overloaded. HR people are always super busy. That's a global illness. HR people are also always super busy, but maybe they should do less and try to increase the impact. Thank you for the question, Gonzalo. I don't know how you got it on there, but at least we saw it.
That is a fantastic takeaway.
Angie, shall I do we still have time? Yeah? Well, if I'm not stopped, I go on. Thank you, Tom Haak and Vivi, for this great and inspiring conversation to boost up our morning. So that's more a compliment, which we said, not enough compliments. Thank you, Angie, for the compliment. We like that, of course. Anybody else? Oh, here's Gonzalo again. Thanks, Henk. I got it all. That's good.
I would like to recommend people to do the personal user guide, to at least for themselves, and to get some insight on whether that's how you see yourself, and it could be a valid way to assess how people can treat you or how people can approach you and try to have a relationship with you, work-wise, obviously.
And it's personaluserguide.com. It's very easy, but you can find it on my site as well. Personal user.
Read the trends. I mean, we only covered a couple of the trends because there's only so much time, and I know we can talk about this for a long time, but there's only so many hours in the day. But we will link it to the article, and the article has the link to the user guide.
Absolutely, and I put it in the chat box as well here.
It's really great. Okay. If nobody else has any questions, to me, Tom, it has been amazing to share my morning with you, picking on your brain, trying to figure out how we can look outside, like you said, to look outside of what it is that we do every day, because it's very.
Thank you for having me, Viviana. You were an excellent host. And, well, you are warm, I'm in the cold, but, I can't send you some.
Maybe a Caribbean island, or the French Polynesia.
Yeah, muchas gracias. Hasta luego. Take care.
Thank you to everyone.